Here, and today I had my meta interview, and I want to recap like what happened during it because essentially I'm trying to hopefully it helps you guys out when you guys do your interviews. So my interview just started off. It was a simple like 45-minute coding interview with the structure essentially being like the first 5 minutes introducing each other, 35 minutes of two technical questions, and then the last 5 minutes of like just I guess me asking questions to the interviewer. And I went into this interview like not doing like any leak code at all. This is like wasn't the smartest thing, obviously, but since I'd done leak code in the past, at least during my college years, like I kind of like understand the patterns and the pattern matching that goes on with it. It definitely doesn't hurt to refresh yourself, obviously, before an interview, but I just wanted to see and test myself out and see how it went. So essentially the first problem was I was given like the input was essentially you get a city name and then a population. So like let's say like New York had New York and then 8 million for New York, for example. And then we have SF for 7 million, and then like another like Paris or something at like 5 million. And you're just given a list of all these cities and their populations, and you have to create a function that returns the actual city name based on the I guess the proportion of that their population fits within the total population. So if like let's say New York has 5 people and Texas, or not Texas, they're not a state, but Dallas has 5 people, then you should expect that half the time, 5 out of 10 times, you should get New York. 5 out of 10 times you should get Dallas, for example. So I did this problem. It wasn't too difficult. I was able to make the input however I wanted, so I just started off with like an unordered map here, so just to link the cities to the integer populations, and then from there I just kind of like try to create like a step function and use like a probability library in there, and was able to code that up. From there though, my second problem was a bit more difficult, but this is like what I mean by like understanding the pattern matching and how LeetCode helps you like identify patterns. So the second problem was I was given like a tree, and it was a binary tree. So at most each node or each parent had 2 children, and essentially like the interviewer told me to print out the tree from left to right, and also not only like print it out like this, but make sure that each column or each node that's like directly on top of the other node in the tree structure, make sure that those, when they're printed out, they should be in order as well. So top to bottom order for the column, but starting from left to right of the tree. And if you do a lot of leak code, you would understand that like this tree, it's like some type of traversal. And on leak code, you have I think it's like the in order traversal, the post order, and the pre order traversals. You can do those questions in leak code, and that helps you like understand like, okay, this problem has something to do with like in this case in order traversal, but it has a bit of a twist where the column on top has to be printed out first before the bottom node, or I guess the top node needs to be printed out before the bottom node for each column. So LeetCode definitely helps you out to like understand this and like identify the patterns, which is why it's so great. Or any, not just LeetCode, any coding exercises, but LeetCode does it really good in the sense that you're able to break it down between like arrays, hash maps, sorting. So when you do LeetCode problems preparing for these interviews, you definitely want to get like a breadth of topics. So like maybe do all the easy problems in the trees, all the easy problems in vectors and in the list, in the string section, in the sorting section, do all those just so you understand like the basic understanding of the patterns. So when you go into an interview, you have the breadth of knowledge to be able to identify and have a better chance of identifying the different patterns that end up happening in the interviews. So I told the interviewer that I told her that I identified that this was like some needing some type of like in order traversal, but with the twist of like making sure the top node comes first. And of course, when you go through these interviews, you got to make sure that you like communicate your problem. Don't just start coding. You want to like kind of write down your steps and then get confirmation from the interviewer that you're able to start coding at that point, that your solution is viable in the sense to start coding. In the worst case, like let's say you don't solve the problem, but if the interviewer is able to understand like your thought process and you kind of get to a solution that makes sense, that could definitely like still give you a pass in the interview. So it's definitely like always you need to always like communicate and like think out loud like all your different like solutions and routes that you could take. So had that question. Um, my first solution was definitely not like the optimal one because I was trying to like at first I was trying to understand like how to make sure each column was like how to identify each column or identify which nodes are like in which column. So like if you start at the root, like if you go one left, that's one column. If you go two left, that's another column. If you go three left, that's another column. If you go right, if you go one left and then one right, that's a different column. So I kind of try to match those little turns, those net turns. So like let's say six was the root and then five was to the left, and then that would be a net one left turn right to the left. And if you had another value that was like, let's say, two to the left, but then one to the right, that would also be two minus one. In that case, it would be one net. It would be one left turn in net. So that those two values would be in the same column, and that was my solution at first. Didn't work out so well in terms of like bringing down the runtime or even the space time because I was using like an extra structure. But once I kind of like understood the recursion and like getting the recursion part right with the in order traversal, I was able to actually get something down. So I ended up getting that part done, and then at the end it was just like another like we had like 5 minutes left, so I kind of had already some questions prepared. Usually I like to get questions that are like surrounded or like around like their values, and meta like talks about inclusion, obviously talks about building like large systems and stuff like that. And for me, like I've already been working on large systems, but that's something I still want to be touching upon and still using that stuff. So I kind of just asked her a question because this software engineer was in the infrastructure team. So I asked her like, what problems would I be able to tackle right away if I were to join to be able to reduce any latency issues? And I think that was a good question, but otherwise, we'll have to wait and see. So thank you guys for listening, and I hope you guys found this useful.